Welcome back to Attack 404. In this episode, we're going to be talking about, again, incident response plans and how to implement them. And we're going to take a look at the investigation process. So the investigation process in any incident response plan is going to deal with how we investigate incidences and what we do when we are looking into an incident or an event. One of the things I want to talk about are shift pass-downs and shift notes. This is going to help an environment where you're doing a follow the sun, where it's split between the morning, the evening, and the wee hours of the morning, or night shift, however you want to look at it. And basically what this will cover will be any important or key elements of the business. So if there were tickets from the previous shift would need to be completed, some information about what the ticket number is, a quick blurb about it, and any incidents that happen or any breaches that they need to know about or anything that was in the news that we need to keep abreast of that might impact the business. So if they found a new RCE or remote code execution vulnerability or exploit, there should be something in the pass down that details that and what they should be looking for, or previous tickets linking that together. This also helps the individuals in the SOC kind of keep an eye out of what happened the day before and going into the next day what the next set of analysts need to look out for. And it won't leave any tickets in limbo, so if an incident is being remediated, it doesn't fall wayside and becomes a breach. Incident labels and classification, again, we're going to be springboarding off of different types of classifications, and that we've seen through the systems, the data that's on there, and the personnel that we have. I've listed out different data types that we could look at and what the impact to that data type is and the classification for it, and basically what labels, sensitivity, confidentiality, availability, integrity, they all have what they all mean. And then basically going from low to critical data, and then how we document that, and then looking at a chart to basically state that customer information was impacted from sensitivity all the way up to the criticality level. What does that mean? What does that look like? What do we need to put around that to make it critical or not so critical? Incident identification is also another big one. We want to know what the incidents impacted and what they mean to us in terms of security. So if someone's asking for login information, as in this example here, is it a phishing page? Was it classified as phishing? What is our classification of phishing? What happens if they're looking to install a piece of software? Is it malicious? How do we know that? Is it labeled under potentially malicious software? And how do we remediate that? And then finally, if it's, a PDF that comes in, it might be asking for credentials or it's installing malware. In this case, it could be either or. We would need a deep dive into it to find out what exactly is going on, and then that would break off into different playbooks and runbooks that the environment would be using. Another key element of incident response is going to be asset management, and I've listed quite a few scenarios where asset management becomes important. The main takeaway for asset management is you want to know what devices users have. One of the reasons is if in the event a user gets phished, what will end up happening is the attacker may in fact add new devices to MFA where they could persist and gain access if in the event that the user was kicked out or the sessions have been terminated. Asset management also comes to play when we're dealing with business continuity and disaster recovery, and also forensics. In impact analysis, if in the event we have to engage BCDR, we need to know what items were broken, what items were taken, what items were vouched, how those items were dispersed, who has those items, and so forth. Another key aspect of asset management is how we track if in the event an individual moves to different business units. And then finally, when it comes down to incident response or forensics, we need to get the systems back if there's a legal hold on them, and we have to do deep analysis on the hard drive and its contents, and then what system we gave them as a replacement unit that they could use in the time being, and also any user profiles that were created if there's a legal hold, and how that's defined in our policies so that they can continue to work while we start digging into whatever they may have done, and how we go about to find that information to make sure that the previous profile isn't impacted or changed in any way, shape, or form. Supporting information is a very big and very critical thing that a lot of analysts skimp out on, or they're not taught, or they lose this somewhere along the line. And this is the importance of having different roles and training, and also bumping your analysts from L1 to L2, L3, engineer, and so on and so forth. When we deal with collecting and supporting information in a ticket, collecting support information in a ticket, we're looking at screenshots. We're also looking at exports from the CM solutions or the EDR solutions that we utilize. In this case, one of the things that we're looking at is how we document and take photos. Naming convention should normally be done somewhere in or around this type of naming convention, simply because you could get a quick overview of what date and time something happened, as well as what image you're dealing with the 1 of n in this position. And you can see as a mock, we've put some verbiage in there that deals with a specific use case, and that use case has an image attached to it, and we see it's the first image that was taken. Containment and recovery is also another aspect of the incident response plan, because you do want to have some types of SOPs and containment processes in place. In this case, we're looking at CrowdStrike, which is an EDR, and we have the URL where they can interact with CrowdStrike and its version of Splunk and find out all the information they need and potentially block or put a system into quarantine. And we can list all the things that the users or the analyst will be doing with that system and how to help them along in order to have everything in a central location. This not only helps with detections, because if we're using Splunk, then we're going to be looking at any other information that an alert might not have, and then falling back on tools like CrowdStrike or Tanium or any of the other tools that we use in order to remediate and recover from any issues that we may have. And then finally, our ticketing system, if we're using ServiceNow or we're using Jira or something else, that'll basically guide the user into where they need to create the tickets, log and track everything, and then move forward. Roles and responsibilities need to be clearly defined in a SOC. One of the things that I will stress is that understanding what roles and at what level certain people are at is crucial, because if you're taking people that are in L3 and you're wedging them into an L1 type of workflow, you're not going to have a lot of happy people. Everything is going to practically turn to shit because they're going to rush through all the analysis. There's not going to be a depth of work. And what's going to end up happening is your quality is going to suffer. More so when I explain this on the Day in the Life of series and explaining what you should be looking for when getting into cybersecurity. If there's no tools present to help your L1s, it's either quantity or quality. You cannot have both. And to my previous manager who thought you could, he's an idiot, and don't listen to managers like that. One or the other. You can't have both. So in the first level, what you're going to end up looking at is triage of spam emails, identifying phishing and malware emails, maybe some depth of analysis to that, especially with the malware analysis. Alert review is also going to be another one where you should be teaching your analyst at the L1, L2, and L3 levels that when they get into the environment and they start to triage things, or they start to triage events, look for what may be missing. And if that information is missing, engage the engineering team to include that in the tickets so it's less time wasted in digging that information out. And that's where also alert review plays a very vital role, because you're not going to have a lot of analysts running around trying to pull the information when it's all in the ticket. It gives almost that perception of the single pane of glass. SOP review is also another big one, because in this aspect, you want to go over the process that you use to solve a specific issue. If it's too convoluted, and I've seen this before, analysts are going to skip. They're not going to do a lot of the analysis. Things are going to be missing. There could be a potential that an event that is an incident or a breach gets swept under the radar because of the steps involved to solve the problem, rather than condensing it and giving them something that they could repeat quickly and in a short amount of time. And also how and when to escalate certain types of events, and start to train your L1s on how to do an environment threat hunt. And the reason being is your L1s will be your first line of defense. And if they don't know that they should take an email address or a different type of indicator of compromise, let's say a hash, and search that through the entire environment, there may be other systems that are infected that you don't know about until there's the availability of an alert, or an EDR gets updated to include the signature on that piece of malware. So keep that in mind when you're creating an incident response plan, that's the levels that you kind of want to have. L2 level is another level where we're going to be actively engaging in threat hunting. There's going to be a lot of process and procedure creation, because we already have the understanding of what the L1s are doing, because we were L1s at some point. And when I say we, I'm using that term as for anyone who identifies as an L2. Containment procedures is also another thing L2s typically handle, and I kind of sort of disagree with this. It's all going to depend on your environment. When an analyst at the L1 level finds something that may need to be blocked, it gets kicked up to an L2 in order to be remediated. I kind of disagree with that mindset. A lot of businesses, this is what they run with. And the reason why I disagree with it is because if there's a bunch of indicators of compromise that need to be blocked, and they're not blocked right away, you still have infected nodes on the network, and that could lead to other issues. Incident command is also another big thing that the L2s are going to handle, and it's mostly going to come in the form of an escalation from an L1, and then basically they would take charge and do all the investigation. What they should also do is do the ride along with the L1s for an incident, so the L1s also get the training that they need if in the event they can't get to an L2, someone's out sick, dead, or won the lottery. And the L1s get the perception that they're going to be learning more, which they will be, and eventually what's going to end up happening is you're going to have a happier L1 that might want to eventually move into an L2 type of position. Also, engineering and tuning is going to be part of some of your L2 day-to-day, and that's going to be working on either enrichment in your CM solution or doing some type of automations in whatever scripting language or programming language that your environment uses, and then also trying to get the mean time to respond down, and in turn that's going to help the L1s and they'll be happier. And lastly, it is no surprise there, L2s will support the L1s and the L3s. L3s, the last stop at dawn, and that's basically all of your alert engineering or any type of engineering. They're going to be proficient with scripting, heavily proficient with regular expressions, because most of your CM solutions and most of your WAFs are going to run regular expressions to find and either block or report things. Also, incident response. At this level, it's going to be multiple operating system incident response. And then finally, the L3s will be supporting L1s and L2s. Locations of important documents and SOPs is very critical because you can have everything well documented. If no one knows where anything is, no one's going to report on anything the way that the environment needs. No one's going to find the documentation that they want. And the managers and the L3s are going to be getting called 24/7. So whatever documents you create, detail them, give a quick purpose of what they do. If you're into that kind of stuff, the last time it was updated, and the location. Because if they fall back on the incident response policy and they need to find something for, let's say, business email compromise, they know where they can get that. And also, your alerting should be in a flow where it might state potential business email compromise. So the analyst knows where to look. Bonus points if you're creating alerts and you're working in something like Tines, is to include in any tickets the SOP that refers to the alert that you are showing your L1. So again, everything is in a quote-unquote single pane of glass. They could find everything they need at their fingertips, and there's no confusion of why something didn't get remediated or responded to. Contacts and communications is another important role, because if in the event that the systems go down, we can't send adequate communications, this is where third-party applications are going to come into play. The two that I would select would either be Signal or Telegram, more preferably Signal. And this is more out-of-bands communications, and the reason being, I've gone ahead and highlighted the things that you'd want to look for in a messaging service and what that means to you. So I wouldn't want to go with anything like WhatsApp. The less Mark Zuckerberg knows, the better. And then also we listing out all the contacts and what business units they preside over, and potentially the geographic location is also another help, because having something that you could quickly look at and drill down by basic information like geolocation or a business unit, you have that at your fingertips, and you can call them whenever there's an incident or something needs to be remediated. Lastly, major incident management is also another key element, because you want to set what levels of importance there are. Priority 1 to priority 4, which would be a lower priority as the number goes up, higher priority when the number is down. P1 is a critical incident. The directions for engaging a P1 all the way up to P4, and also the SLA timing for each level so that things are remediated rather quickly. And then depending on the priority level, we also have a MIM contact, department manager, and all that good stuff in a mix. So I'm basically going to cap this one at part 3, and when the next session comes out, we're going to be taking a look at the data collections and what we would normally do in that section. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. We hope you enjoyed this segment, and we hope to see you back in the next one.